On today's podcast, I have a very, very special guest, Mr. Hugh McCluskie. He's got 10 years of coaching experience as a goalkeeping coach at various ages and levels. He's with the Wolves women's team as first team goalkeeping coach. He's also a FA national goalkeeping coaching tutor and has worked with Birmingham City and the armed forces. Also a UEFA A in coaching goalkeepers and a UEFA B. Hugh, thank you for joining in. Why don't we hear a bit about your background?
Yeah, no, thanks so much for the invite. It's good to chat to you. So yeah, as I said, so currently a Wolves woman, working in the third tier of the England women's game. And how did I get into sort of coaching and stuff? Well, I wasn't a great player, I'm not going to lie. Didn't play at a great level, but got really interested in coaching. Weirdly fell into coaching due to coaching a family member who their coach wasn't great and sort of didn't understand goalkeeper. Said, "Do you fancy getting it a go?" And got the bug from there really. And then started completing all my badges to try and sort of get myself a bit more educated. And then ended up where I am now really. So it's been an interesting journey. It's been fun. I really enjoy it still, which is I guess after sort of the years in the game, is good to do really. And yeah, I'm now at Wolves, and good club. Everything seems to be going forward for us, and hopefully we can see what happens in the league this year.
For sure. Interesting journey. And I look forward to talking so much about goalkeeping on this podcast. So, what does a typical day look like for you on the training ground?
So we arrive in. It depends really what we're up to. It's and what age group I'm working with. So normally on a training night, I'm in first with the younger age groups, and we've got a syllabus that we follow over a 10-week cycle. Uh, we've got a head of goalkeeping who came in uh, probably sort of middle of last season, and he sort of brought in a new syllabus and then asked us as a women's section to follow what the boys section are doing, which is really, really good from our point of view. So the girls get the exact same syllabus that the boys get, which is brilliant. But also means then and he's done it that we're integrated across the whole club. So no matter which goalkeeping coach is taking which area, we all know what we're all up to, and we can all then go across from one session to another. So that's really handy and really good from our point of view. So we mix the girls and boys in as well, which is for the girls' point of view really starting to see the development. So we'll go in and we'll do that, and then we'll then get together for a bit of match day, depending where we are on who we're playing, and looking at the opposition. The analyst normally gives us all the aspects that we require for going forward. So depending who we're playing. So last weekend we were playing FA Cup against Hull. We knew they were going to be dangerous against set pieces, and so then obviously that focuses what we're looking at from a goalkeeping's perspective for the first team. So looking at then things like crowded box, shots from distance, that sort of aspect. So that's really what we build up to, and how we get in. The team arrive. We normally do depending which day it is, we'll do some form of analysis, some form of chat. They then go into the S&C coach, do what he needs them to do, and then they're in, and we do about an hour or so with them before they go into the outfield session. So it seems when you say it that quickly, it seems quite a long night, but it's actually it goes really, really quickly from our point of view.
Quite sounds like a structured, organized, and integrated environment, which is
Yeah,
good.
it's really good.
Yeah,
And the club's driving that, which is from our point of view absolutely brilliant.
yeah.
Uh,
And
we get the resources and the help that we need.
yeah, the club's doing a wonderful job. Do you have a philosophy about how you train your goalkeepers? Anything in particular?
So we've got what which classes, what does a Wolves women goalkeeper look like, and we've got yeah, philosophy what it is. So we split it into the five. I know the FA's got a four corner model approach, but one of the corners is a technical tactical, and we split that out. So we got you say a five corner model. That sounds a bit strange because there's not many things with five corners, but we've got that sort of five corner model. So we split it out looking at the different attributes that we want in a goalkeeper. So if we look at the technical aspects, it's big saves. Can they do the big saves aspects? Can they essentially keep the ball out of the net, which is essentially what we're after at the end of the day. Then we're looking in the physical aspects, which is slightly different for a woman compared to a boy or a man. That they obviously the females don't tend to be as tall. So we're looking at different attributes. So we're looking at the jump heights. How do we compensate for the lack of height so that they still cover the whole goal, because there's no difference in size of the goal compared to a male and a female. So how do we do that?
Yeah.
And then the social and psychological areas are really big for us. So self-analysis and reflection. Are they able to uh, are they able themselves to work at what's gone wrong, or indeed what's gone well for them, and rectify or improve? And we use the term comfortable being uncomfortable. So we
Yeah.
want to put them in a stretch area that during training that allows them to find it easier during a game. So are they comfortable doing that? And then in the social aspects, then we're looking at being part of the team. Are they able to talk, and is it effective communication, and allowing that to get around the pitch so that they can communicate accordingly, and make sure that they can get their messages across in a way that the team's open to. Where I was growing up, I remember, I'm probably going to show my age here a little bit, but I remember the goalkeepers like Bruce Grobbelaar and Peter Schmeichel was probably the biggest one that I remember as a child, who how do we put this politely? Were very forward in their opinions, and you could see during the game they were letting their defence know if they weren't happy or something was going on. It's probably the polite way of putting it. I don't think that doesn't, well, unless you look at Mary Earp, she's definitely forward and come doing that. But the most female goalkeepers in my experience don't tend to do that. So it's looking at how we get them to talk to get that message across in an appropriate manner.
I think from what you have explained, a lot of coaches and clubs can actually, take inspiration from on how to set their teaching and learning goals. Now, decision making is such a huge factor in football, in regardless of whichever position you play, and goalkeeping is such an important position when it comes to goalkeeping. So, how do you incorporate decision making into your own exercises? Which because goalkeeping can sometimes be quite repetitive, autonomous. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, and it's something that's being driven from the highest levels here in England. That the FA is very keen for goalkeeping coaches to ensure that there's decision making in all sessions. So uh, it's ensuring that your sessions go into what we call it the live aspect. So you've got announced service, which is essentially goalkeeper knows where the ball's going and what type of serve they're going to get. And then you've got unannounced, which is they don't know one of those. So they might know it's a volley, but they don't necessarily know where it's going, or they know where it's going, but they don't know what type of serve they're going to get. And then you got live, which is they haven't got a clue what's going on, or they know the rough outline of the practice, but they don't know what type of serve they're going to get, or indeed how the practice is going to progress. And it's getting into that aspect as soon as you can. So how do you make the session as live as you can, making the serves, making it realistic. So if you're doing 1v1 sessions, making sure it's not just a nice little tap through where the ball's going at 1 mile an hour. It's making sure that the ball's being played through at feet, that the service is realistic, that whoever it is that's going through for the 1v1 is acting in a realistic manner,
Yeah.
and doing what a striker would do in a real game. So it's just trying to make sure it's as close to realism as you can. You're going to need your technical attributes without a doubt. So again, I'll go into crosses because that's easier to do in my head. You got your technical attributes, making sure in the correct start position, make sure they assess the flight of the ball, make sure that they go and get it at the highest point that they can claim, and excuse me, the type of catch that they go and do, and so on. And if they can't go and get it, then that they defend the goal. And then how do you then incorporate that into that live aspect? Well, then do you bring in things like air mannequins, or indeed just people, which is probably the better aspect, because people obviously react differently to an air mannequin. But then that's where you get your decision making, because you've got a crowded area. Are you actually going to come for the ball, because actually your defender might get there first, and actually the attacker might get there first? So what are you going to do? And then different types of serve that would come in from the cross. They're not always nice floated into the 6-yard box that you can come and claim nicely. It could be driven, it could be along the floor, it could actually be a pullback. There's all sorts of different serve there that you could get in a real game. So you've got to incorporate that into your practice. So it's essentially to answer the question, which is to make it as realistic as you can within whatever sort of whatever box you've got to operate in. So can you make sure that there's something that gives a little bit of opposition to the goalkeeper? And that could be you as a coach, where we use rugby tackle bags.
Right.
So you essentially just, and loads of people do that. The other one we use is, I think they're called Swiss balls, the big round
Right.
balls that you use in a gym.
Yep.
So you can use those to just to give a little bit of opposition to the goalkeeper, so that they're not just running straight out and catching it, that they've got to do something or assess whether or not they're going to get it. And then that realism will give them realistic decisions to make, and hopefully then that when that goes into a real game, that they then make the correct decisions when they're in the game.
So you keep them on their toes as much as you can. And now when
As
you
much,
talk
yeah,
about,
massively,
yeah,
because I think that's I always say when I have a bad shot or a misplaced serve, that the game's random, so the serve's got to be random. So it's making it as random as you can.
agreed. Really, really interesting. Now, when you go into a match setting, when you go into a match, what are the main focuses in your observations from from the touchline for your goalkeepers?
Uh, so again, it's looking at what we've worked on. So
Yeah.
uh, and necessarily what's going on in the game, and trying to help them as much as we can. So I'll go back to this weekend. Uh, we had a goalkeeper get injured, so we had to put our substitute goalkeeper on.
Yeah.
And then it was she was young. She was brought up for the FA Cup final. We had our FA Cup final. That's a bit optimistic. Our FA Cup game, and she was 16, coming on in a third round of the FA Cup when we were 1-0 down,
Okay.
with a little bit of pressure that we wanted to win this game.
Yeah.
And it was talking to her about how to cope with that pressure. Just relax, just cope. Just, you can do this. You would be here if we didn't think you could, so on and so forth. And just reassuring her, for example. But then for the other goalkeeper, normally we would look at what we're looking at. So is it, was her distribution good? Was she playing into feet the way we wanted to play on her feet? How was her shot stopping? Was it okay? What about her start position? What about her support position? So
Right.
it's making sure she's acting as that 11th player when we're in possession, but then when we're out of possession, just seeing if there's anything that we can see in the sidelines that might help her to get what she needs. So, that again, that might be our start position, or the ball's being played over the top quite a bit. We think you're a little bit too deep. Could you be a little bit high in your start position to defend that space in behind? So it's just looking at those sort of aspects. The hardest bit's trying to get the information onto the goalkeeper, because you just can't walk up and go, or yell from the sidelines, would you mind awfully taking 2-3 yards forward? So we try and get the information onto them as quickly as we can, but a lot of the time it tends to be when there's breaks in the game. So free kicks, injuries, or the big one, which is obviously half time. Then try and get that information fed onto them so that they can hopefully react and do different in the second half.
And do your observations change in any way when it's your main first choice goalkeeper?
When it's the main first choice, yes, it does tend to change. She's a little bit older. She's uh, been playing the game for a few years, and again, it changes from goalkeeper to goalkeeper. I worked with a goalkeeper once who didn't want to be spoken to at half time, and really, you just sort of went and you just asked the question, "You're right," and she go, "Yep," and then that was it. So it changes from person to person, which I think gets the biggest point for being probably being any coach, is that you need to know your players and know how to interact with them, so that you can get the best out of them. And that might be actually not talking to them, just leave them completely in peace, to either for them to self-reflect, or just to sit there and just get ready for the second half.
Now, coming to a bit of a realistic situation, I don't know how true it is in the UK, but in a lot of countries, not every club is blessed with a goalkeeping coach. They are not fortunate enough to have a goalkeeping coach. So, what are some ways goalkeeping training can be integrated alongside functional group training or team training that are usually, often overlooked by most coaches?
Uh, so it is important that you integrate your goalkeepers full stop, no matter whether you've got a goalkeeping coach or not. So it's, from a personal view, they need to be in and around the outfield sessions as often as you can. Uh, Weirdly, goalkeeper nowadays it's around about 80% of the games played with their feet.
Yeah.
So they need to be able to be confident and competent in doing that. So getting them in and around the outfield session is key. How you do that is a challenge at times, because a lot of the time they'll throw them straight into a session,
Yeah.
in that they'll be in the middle and acting as a normal outfielder. that's not quite realistic to the game. So we don't tend to have, as goalkeepers, 360 vision, because we're not right at the back and you've got everything in front of you. So how do you incorporate that is you put them as target players at the end, put them as target players at the side, so they're still getting that 180 vision and able to get the ball and switch or whatever it is you need them to do. So, but they're still using their feet.
Yeah.
And you can do that as a simple possession practice where you just have your outfielders playing. Instead of having a goal, you've got to play it into your goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And as the ball's played in, then they can use their feet and get the correct support positions to allow those passes to be made. And that's helpful for the goalkeeper as well. If you're looking then at how do you do the basic attributes of goalkeeping within, if you've not got a goalkeeping coach, there's hopefully, hopefully you've got someone at your club that can do some form of goalkeeping with them that can then do the basic technical attributes, how to catch, how to get your set positions, all that sort of fundamentals of goalkeeping that's required. And then just put them into your session where they get a little bit of shot stopping at them, where they get a little bit of stuff played in and around them, and hopefully that allows them to develop. You probably have a good goalkeeper who's very good at shot stopping and using their feet, but then the other attributes maybe not as much, but at least then you've given them the fundamentals to allow them to cope in a game.
And let's say you have a coach who's not very competent with goalkeeping coaching because it's such a specialized position. Or as we mentioned, if you don't have a goalkeeping coach, what are the easiest things to teach and correct in goalkeepers as an
Uh,
outfield coach?
So it's looking the basic of a goalkeeper is what we call the set position. So it's that position. Everyone does that. Everyone stands in that sort of looking like a Sabutio goalkeeper type thing, where that's the fundamental of how to be a goalkeeper, and you need to be in that position for pretty much every action that a goalkeeper will do. So whether that's shot stopping, whether that's going to start to go for a cross, you're in some form of set position. So if you're able to identify that and work on that, then that will set your goalkeeper up really well to deal with whatever that action is going to be. So it's looking at starting the bottom feet slightly wider than the shoulders, depending on how far the ball away is, depending on how wide the feet actually are. But it's essentially to start off with the ball's about 12 yards away, feet slightly wider than the shoulders, knees slightly bent, chins over the top of the knees, arms are slightly forward, in a neutral position around about the waist, but hands forward so that your hands aren't by your side, the hands are out in front of the body. And then that allows the goalkeeper to react to everything. So you can then easily make a catch into that W save, as everyone refers to, or your sort of your scoops and your cups and so on and so forth. And if you can get that very, very basic set position, that will then set the goalkeeper up really well to do that. And there's certain things you can look at. So if they're too tall, for example, as in they're stood really upright, but the ball's really close, then you can sort of coach who actually need to be a bit lower. So as the ball gets closer, your body position goes lower. And then again, sort of if they're too low, strange enough, strike and the ball's 18 yards away, most strikers will then tend to go high. So then hopefully your goalkeeper learns from that and sets themselves in a position that allows them to cope with that higher ball but the lower ball. So it's that sort of set position to look at. There's loads of examples of it on the internet if people need to go and look at it. And there's loads of sort of books and documents out there that you can sort of have a good look at to see what that sort of set position is.
The coaching points you mentioned will definitely be helpful to every outfield coach who is trying to, try and improve their goalkeeper. Now, a very, very important question in my view. You've worked with goalkeepers of every age group. What age do you think players should be pigeonholed to specialize as a goalkeeper only?
Oh, that's a great question. Uh, Probably around about 10, 11. Allow them to allow the player to make that decision themselves. If they want to be a goalkeeper at 6, 7 years of age, let them do it. But make sure that they're still okay with using their feet and able to play out. And I think that's where a lot of the good goalkeepers are able to do a little bit of both.
Yes.
If you look at the game in England, you got Ederson, who plays at Man City, who could probably play centre midfield for some clubs in England. His feet is unbelievable, and his distribution is surreal. You watch him hit a ball from his penalty spot, and I can't remember who he did it against. Actually, he played the ball over the top into Aguero just by look, he was getting pressured, and then just it wasn't just I'm going to hit the ball as hard as I can. It was a long pass. So if you can encourage him to still play out a little bit, and at a younger age group, get the ball mastery skills that they need to learn how to pass a football, both nice and short, but also can they do those driven passes into distance, and that's brilliant. And then if they want to, as they start to get older, sort of 9, 10, 11-ish, then they start to get into that goalkeeping aspects, and that's brilliant. And then really, really focus on the goalkeeping attributes that you can, and get them hopefully to go wherever you need them to go.
Right. And I wanted your opinion since you're so involved in the game. Now, when we think about goalkeepers who can play out from who are good with their feet, you have Edison, you have Allison, you have Onana to an extent. Now, the English way of doing it is now evolving. So you want your goalkeepers playing with being good with their feet. However, we don't really. So when we talk about goalkeepers who are good with their feet, we don't really have too many English goalkeepers who are looked up to in that respect. So do you think that's going to change very soon?
Uh, so as a Northern Irishman, it's an interesting comment because we look at the English and how they try and develop the game, and to say there's no English goalkeeper, I think that's interesting because I think Jordan Pickford can do it. He's very, very good with he's very good with his feet, and has that. He can go quite considerable distances.
Yeah.
I think the question is, at the top levels of the game, is there a lot of English goalkeepers?
Yeah.
And in the Premier League at the minute, there's probably not. I'm trying to think in my head who's the top English goalkeeper. It's probably well, Ramsdale's a good goal at Arsenal, but he's obviously not playing at the minute. And then you've got Pope at Newcastle, but he's just been ruled out with injury. I think it's his shoulder's done, actually. Oh, he dislocated his shoulder. So there's a few in there, and
Yeah.
Pope's probably not the best with his feet, but he's not bad. But again, that goes back to that point that we discussed earlier on how do you make your training as realistic as you can to ensure you get it. And it's making sure that as a youth player that we get them playing with their feet. So hopefully in the next, which is everything. I know that, again, going back to the experiences I've had with the club, everything is the first 10, 15 minutes we've got, no matter what session we're doing, the boys are in playing with their feet so that they can get good at it. My biggest concern is, if you look at the likes of what we discussed with Ederson, is that everything's very short, and it's at some point we're going to want people to go longer again, and it's making sure that we develop a goalkeeper that is capable of doing both.
Right.
Because I think that's key. Because at some point, if you're getting pressed, sometimes the best option is actually to break the press, is to go over the press.
Right.
And it's ensuring that you can do that.
So it's definitely a step in the right direction. Now we just need to hope that clubs can start trusting English goalkeepers more, and then hopefully have many more English goalkeepers who then get known for using their feet. Now,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. Now, with your tremendous experience working both in the men's game and women's game, are there any major differences you have observed working with male goalkeepers and female goalkeepers?
The biggest difference is probably the physical attributes. I think the average height of a male goalkeeper is around about 6'4". The average height of a female goalkeeper, I think, is about 5'10", 5'11". So you're talking, I don't even know what that is in meters, by the way. So apologies for using feet and inches. Was it 6? So we're talking 6-ish inches. So around about 15 centimeters. So you're talking quite a big difference in height. And it's how do you ensure that, because the goal is no different. The goal in the female game and the male game, the goal is the same size. So it's how do you work with your female goalkeepers to ensure that they can cope with that difference in size. Excuse me. And I think that's possible. It's not a big set. The other thing is, obviously, in physicality, is that they're not going to be able to. They just, at the minute, they cannot kick the ball as long as they can. There's some out there who can, by the way, but I'm not saying that they all can't. But to generalize, most will not be hitting the edge of the 18-yard box from their 18-yard box in the female game. So, but all that means is that actually you just need to generate a goalkeeper who's and a team who's aware of that, and it's the awareness thing is the big one, and that's what probably sets them aside, is that they are probably a bit more self-aware of the limitations and can act accordingly. which then means that the game is tends to be a little bit shorter. But actually, when you do go over the top, it's probably just hitting from the 18-yard box. It's probably hitting edge of the centre circle rather than the male game where you're probably hitting edge of the D, and those really good keepers who can do that.
Yeah.
By the way, there's goalkeepers in the male game who can't do that either. So, but generally, it tends to be that's the main sort of differences between them. Technically, being a goalkeeper is being a goalkeeper. You know, I can't, without sounding that's oversimplifying, a catch is a catch.
Yeah.
And the attributes of how do you teach a catch is no different. How do you teach how to come for a cross and coach is no different. They just might not get it at the heights that you expect a male goalkeeper to get it.
Right. And are there any major psychological or social differences you've experienced working with both genders?
Uh, yeah. So that if you tell a male to do something, they tend to do it with basic questioning. They'll go, "Well, I want you to go and catch the ball at highest point. Why? Because that means that you'll hopefully get there before the striker, and the striker can't get as tall as you, and you're more chance of clearing the ball." Okay, cool. And a male will go and do that.
Yeah.
You ask a female, they ask more questions. Why? So I want you to go and claim the ball at the highest point. Why? Because it allows you to have more chance of getting the ball. Why? Because you're the striker's going to be smaller than you. Why? Well, because that's just and they'll ask more questions. But as a coach, that's from my point, from uh, my sort of thinking on that is that's brilliant because it challenges me as a coach because I've then got to have those answers. So
Right.
if I just go, just do as you're told and go and get it at the highest point, you probably lose that goalkeeper. But if you can go, well, here's the reasons why, here's the technical attributes, here's the tactical aspects, here's this, they go, right, okay, I'll go and do that. And it really challenges your understanding as a coach, which then weirdly helps you when you go into either game because you've got male or female, because you've got to make sure that you're on top of your game.
So would you suggest to coaches to, at some point of their time, try and get with a women's team so that it accelerates their development in situations like these?
Ooh, yeah, it's different challenges working in both games. Uh, would I recommend working in both? Without a doubt, it's brilliant. I've loved it. I've loved working in the male game and I've loved working in the female game.
Right.
Uh, it depends what you want really and what sort of challenges you see and how you want to develop yourself. But yeah, it's a different challenge. And I think it's easier for a goalkeeping coach to go from one to the other.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely a good challenge and I'd recommend it to anyone.
Right, 100%. It'll be a big learning experience. Now, I've noticed that you have been in charge of working with set pieces. You've been responsible for managing the set pieces at a lot of clubs that you've worked at. So, is it
Yeah.
a common trend for goalkeeping coaches to be in charge of set pieces?
I think it is. It's something that's highly encouraged
Yeah.
when I've gone through my coaching courses. So I don't know if that's an English thing or not, but it's something that's been highly encouraged that the goalkeeping coach will do set pieces.
Right.
Probably more. So initially I started it was more defensively, and that's probably just because we're used to organising our box in those sort of areas for defensive set pieces, predominantly corners,
Yeah.
and then it's just about what do you do next, and it's something that I weirdly enjoy. It's like a game of chess, really. You've got to try and work out what they're doing and then outwit them, so to speak.
Right.
Uh, and so yeah, so I think it's something that's highly encouraged from the FA. It's definitely in all the courses that I've done is how do you work on set pieces and what do you do? Uh, and in each club I've been at, I've volunteered to do it, and I'm trying to think who does them up and down at the different aspects of our club. And uh, the old goalkeeping coach, Tony Roberts, for the first team, he did the set pieces. A lot of Premier League clubs now, they are getting in specialist set pieces coaches, which shows how the game's going, really. Uh, but he did them, and then the under 21 Scott, he does them for the under 21. So it is something that is
Right.
probably predominant in England that the goalkeeping coach does set pieces, but it's getting the trust of your manager as well. You need to convince them that you want to that you're a more than happy to do it, but also that you're competent at doing them, and there's that trust aspect because when it goes wrong and when it does, you can guarantee who the manager is going to turn and glare at.
Yeah, yeah, and I've been inquisitive to know another thing. So when I've watched top level games on television, when a substitute is about to come on, you see the goalkeeping coach talking to the substitute who's an outfield player. So what kind of messages are usually passed? What are they responsible for in those
So that point's normally, so again, to do it myself, that point we're normally then reminding them of what their roles and responsibilities are at the set pieces. Depending on what you use, we use obviously paper because it's easier, and your battery's not going to die on a piece of paper. So we use and we've got a folder and we just set so that we literally show them where they're going to go for that set piece, what they're going to do, what the roles and responsibilities are in that position, who they're replacing, if we need to move anyone around because your 6'2" centre forward's coming off who does man marking, but your new 4'11" strikers coming on is probably not going to man mark, so you might move them around, put them on a post or wherever it is, and that might mean you have to move. So you're basically running through set pieces, what they're going to do, their roles, responsibilities, and if they need to get any other information on whenever we change around, and that sort of that can be it's interesting at that point because you need to get it done quickly because the gaffer's trying to get someone on quickly, but you
Yes.
need to make sure they've got all the information that they need.
I think that signifies how important the role of a goalkeeping coach is becoming now. It's not just that the goalkeeping coach works with the goalkeeper. They're involved in so much more. That's brilliant to see,
Yeah,
actually.
and
Now,
it's something.
yeah,
Sorry, it's something that we say is that it would and something that we encourage. We're not. Yes, we are goalkeeping coaches, so we are, but we're not goalkeeping coaches. We're football coaches who specialise in goalkeeping. So
yes,
we do tend to I don't know what it's like elsewhere in England. You've got to do certain outfield badges to do your coaching badge, your goalkeeping badges. So you've got to you're a football coach who's just has a good understanding of goalkeeping. So you need to use that and
right.
help your team out as well.
So I have another question in this regard. So as a specialist goalkeeping coach, you have also got your UEFA B, an outfield badge. So does it
Yep.
become a challenge for goalkeeping coaches to excel at outfield courses, considering that they are usually involved with the goalkeeper and not too much with in conducting outfield sessions?
Uh, was it? Yeah, look, I'll be honest. When I did my B license, it was hard.
Yeah,
Uh, Mainly because you're not necessarily you're doing a finishing session or a looking at a midfield session and thinking I've never played in midfield in my life,
yeah,
and how do you then adapt to that? So that's a real challenge, and but that also means you got to make sure your technical knowledge is where it needs to be,
right.
and that's actually fun. And when you get into it, it's good. I actually think it's something that's required. When I first started going into my goalkeeping coaches, it was like, why do I need to do outfield courses? I just want to be a goalkeeping coach. I
Yeah,
don't care about outfield stuff.
yeah,
But as you get further and further into it, and as you start to work in different teams, you then start to understand why you need your outfield stuff as well. Because you're not just going back to what we said earlier about how do you make your sessions realistic. Well, you need to understand what a defender's going to do. You need to understand what a striker's going to do, and you may have to bring them into your session. So I've done sessions where we've had real defenders in there, and when you integrate your goalkeeper back into outfield sessions, you might be working with the goalkeeper, the back four, and maybe a four, like a centre defensive midfielder. So you then need to make sure that you are giving them the right details. So you know why did your defender not looking in the right direction? Why is their body shape out? You know
right,
what sort of, and if you're playing out from the back, which weirdly I've done before as well with now you're looking at how do you receive the football
yeah,
and where do you want people positioned and those sort of whether the ball's played into then you need people to go and support and so on and so forth. So having your outfield badges to do what is essentially a goalkeeping session is key because you need to have the credibility to work with the outfielders,
yeah,
but you also need to have that technical knowledge so that the outfielders get something out of it as well, not just the
right.
goalkeeper. So for me, it's something that I'm glad I've done. It was hard work. But it sets you up for the future. And it also means that if I go in somewhere, I can coach outfielders as well if the gaffer's doing something else. So a finishing practice where you might have to go in and whilst you're working on the goalkeeper and shot stopping, you might need to go and actually go to the striker and go, the reason that you're just not getting your foot planted on time and actually your run's too straight. So that's why a defender's to think about curving your run and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's key, my
Quite
opinion.
important, quite important considering how, as we mentioned, the role of the goalkeeping coach is evolving.
Yes,
Now,
massive.
yeah. Now, my next one is, so you're quite involved in as a tutor, as an FA tutor.
Yeah.
So now, why I ask this question is that this can probably also tell goalkeeping coaches basically how to be a good goalkeeping coach. So, as a tutor, how do you assess the qualities of a potential goalkeeping coach?
So I do the national goalkeeping coach certificate in England, and it's replaced what was level 1, level 2. And what we're looking for, so we're looking for a goalkeeper who has the technical goalkeeper coach. So what we're looking for a goalkeeper coach who's got the technical details that we're after. So it's very much the fundamentals of goalkeeping. So that set position, shot stopping. How do you execute a dive, low and high? How do you do the different techniques for sort of the 1v1? So you block spreads and smothers. And it's quite intensive. It's done over it's a long day. And we've got a lot of detail to get across, but it's looking at what the technical details that the learner coaches are going to give out, and making sure that they give the fundamentals of goalkeeping across in a good manner. That they also that the sessions that they put on are as realistic as we can get them for that level as well, so that they will prepare their goalkeepers accordingly. And then just making sure that they feel comfortable going out to coach goalkeepers, so that they're not going out with their heads on fire thinking they can't do it. So we give them a little bit of confidence, a lot of technical detail to get them to understand what the fundamentals of goalkeeping is, and then release them to the world, and hopefully we'll see them in the future and future courses.
Interesting. And now, since you're such an experienced goalkeeping coach and tutor, is there any advice you'd like to give goalkeepers as well as goalkeeping coaches?
Yeah, never stop learning.
Yeah.
I got given a saying, and I think it's brilliant. I'd love to say it was my saying, but it's if you're the smartest person in a room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
So go and find another room where you're going to go and learn. And I think that's a brilliant philosophy as a person, both in football and just in general life.
Right.
So always go and learn, go and look at things, be a student of the game, and see what's going on. So as a goalkeeper, what's the current trends in goalkeeping, and how are you going to ensure that you can meet them? So again, going back to what we said earlier, what's the current trends, high support positions, and being able to play with your feet, and being essentially we keep saying the 11th player, but being able to act as that pivot if needed, and defending in possession, but also defending the space out of possession. So so learning the trends of the game and making sure you know what's going on. And the same goes for goalkeeping coaches. What is going to be the next trend in the game? I mean, 10 years ago, we all looked at Manuel Neuer and thought he's crazy. He's barking. Look at him. He's he's practically playing as a midfielder at certain points. That he'll get caught out one day, and I don't think he really has. But then that's generated into the rest of the game. So now you've got, okay, we used Ederson earlier. He could easily play centre midfield in some teams.
Right.
Alisson's probably the same, and we're looking at that sort of style. That's the sort of goalkeepers we're trying to develop now. But what's next? What's next for goalkeepers? And at the minute, I couldn't give you an answer. But it's probably going to be, can we look to, everyone wants to play that high press, so it's using your goalkeeper to break that high press. So whilst we've got goalkeepers, and again, it is with the feet. It's having those goalkeepers who are competent and comfortable with their feet, and able to break presses, but also encourage a press. So as the ball's played into a goalkeeper, are you encouraging that striker to come at you so you can break that press easier? And that's what you've got to try and look at for the future. What's next, and then what's next after that? I don't know the answers on at the minute, but that's probably what needs to be done as a coach and as a goalkeeper.
Right. This has been quite I've loved your opinions, to be honest. This is quite a good reference point for all goalkeepers, goalkeeping coaches listening, as well as outfield players who want to become better at their role. Now, before I let you go, I'd like to know, what are your future plans with your career?
Oh, that's a great question. I've got no idea, is the honest answer. I'm really enjoying being where I am. I love the club. I love being in at the club, and I love. I just generally enjoy being where I am at the minute. So at the minute, I've got no haven't thought about my future yet. There's different things I'd like to try and improve myself, and maybe learn just a bit more learning. Obviously, I'd love one day to go and work at higher levels and at national levels. That's probably may or may not be achievable, but it's nice to have ambitions. See what happens.
Right.
Excuse me. And yeah, so I don't know is the honest answer, to be brutally honest. But yeah, the future hopefully is that we will, as a club, keep progressing, and hopefully I'll keep progressing with that club.
You've had a wonderful career so far, and I'm sure it's just gonna grow to become bigger and better. So yes, this was
Okay.
wonderful. Thank you for your time. You've really given
Well, thank
some
you.
Wonderful insights, and this is really going to be a good reference point for me personally, as well as for mainly the Indian football audience that are listening. So a big thank you to you.
No, no problem. No, thank you very much for your time, and I hope I hope it was useful. And say if anyone wants to get in touch, I'm always happy to chat goalkeeping to anyone.
Yeah.